Good morning, everyone. My name is Valentine, and who I am, I'm the engineering manager at PocketDoc. We are a San Mateo-based organization. However, we do keep a significant engineering presence here in Charleston, so I'm not a stranger to the city. We are a healthcare software company developing API platforms. And so we're not necessarily an InfoSec company, but security is extremely important in the healthcare industry, and so that's, I think it should be important to everyone. My background, so I have 10 years of information technology. It's all been blue team. It's all been business analytics, system administration, compliance. I've been in utility. I've been in heavy industry. So I've been around. I say that I like to build things, not break them. And so today's agenda, so we're going to talk about why you want application whitelisting in your environment. We're going to talk about why you won't want application whitelisting in your environment. This talk is designed to be zero to hero, so if you've never interacted with application whitelisting, I'm going to take you through the fundamentals, and then I'm going to bring you all the way through Microsoft App Locker, which is an in-operating system product. And then on Mac OS, I'm going to talk about Google Santa, which is an open source product. And so, why do we want application whitelisting? Well, we start with deny all on our firewalls. So why don't we do the same thing on our endpoints, on our servers? Seems simple, right? Well, it's hard, right? Application whitelisting, you have to know what's supposed to run on your devices. Do you know every process, every application running? No, we've been trained to just use the operating system as it is. There's known bypasses. Everything I'm going to talk about today, if you have one of those red teamers out there, get on your box, they're going to be able to bypass it. That's a fact. But that's true with antivirus, and you still install it. The idea of application whitelisting is you're building an onion. You're defending in depth. So it's impossible to manage. And if you don't have good inventory of what you're running, that could be true. You might enable this and end up in a situation that you can't manage your rules, and all of a sudden a CEO is knocking at your door saying, why can't I open this PDF? I need this PDF to send to a customer, and you turn off all your controls and it failed. It's time consuming. Yep, security's time consuming. I don't know how to break it any other way than that. And it's not worth it. And that's a decision you and your business have to make. Personally, I think whitelisting is worth it. I think if you're coming from information security and you've already done privilege control and you've already done full disk encryption, maybe this is the next step. And so, like I said, good security takes work. It's part of your defense in-depth strategy. So you're not relying on an antivirus vendor to update signatures. You're starting with a deny all and whitelisting what should work or what should run. If you put it out on your endpoints, you're going to prevent your users from going out and downloading the next screensaver application, which happens to be CryptoLocker. If they get a CryptoLocker in their email and they double-click that executable and they're all excited, whitelisting might save you. You might save your company with it, because your default deny all will not let that executable run. Now, if it's sophisticated and it's going through Office and it's a VBA malware and it's doing in-memory, maybe whitelisting won't help. But why take the chances? Why not add another layer? It also raises the bar for any active attacker attempting to execute code on the box. So yes, there's bypasses, but maybe the person who popped on your box doesn't know about whitelisting. Maybe they've never interacted with...
Maybe they're just lazy.
Maybe they're lazy. Right? I mean, they get on the box and they try to run, Metasploit, and they get, oh, I can't run executables on this box. That's weird. And they just move on, So why not application whitelisting? So I'm going to tell you why not to pay attention to my talk. If you're not doing full disk encryption, you're not doing credential hygiene, your users are full admin on their laptops, this is not a technology for you. You need to mature your security organization before you invest this time, because this is a time-consuming process to implement this across your organization. So right here, I reference Jessica Payne's Build the Attacker's Playground. It's a a pretty good checklist. If you use that to go over your environment and say, yes, I'm doing that, yes, I'm doing that, you know, that's a good place to start. Maybe that'll give you some ideas like LAPS, local administration password management. Also, the person talking after me, a gentleman named Eric, who I met earlier, his talk is Easy Wins in Active Directory, so he might give you some other ideas to do before you take on whitelisting. And so what is whitelisting? Like I said, I'm going to take you to 0 to hero. And so this is the NIST definition. Application whitelisting technologies use whitelists to control which applications are permitted to execute on a host. This helps to stop the execution of malware, unlicensed software, and other unauthorized software. I don't know. NIST definitions always, I get lost. I don't know. They're government standards. So I'm going to walk you through it. So let's say you're running your computer and you want to open up uTorrent. If you don't have AV, you don't have whitelisting, it just works. Your computer loves running code. It's going to work like a champ. So you take the next step. You've installed antivirus, and you've got a naughty list. So now anything that's known bad, it will be blocked. That's great. You know, the next generation antiviruses are using machine learning, but effectively they can only stop what they know to stop. If they don't recognize it as malicious, they're going to let it run. And so as of 2017, November 11th, uTorrent was classified as not malicious, and so it's going to run on AV. It's just going to happen. So if you have an application whitelisting solution, it's not going to get that far. It's going to stop it at the kernel level. So if you're on Windows, this is going to block before UAC. And if you're on Mac, it's going to stop. I don't know what the process is called, but you get that little thing that says you have to go into security to run it. That's what whitelisting is for. It's to stop it before code executes. All right, so some foundational terms. Once again, 0 to hero stuff. App Blocker, as I mentioned, is a Microsoft Windows built-in application. Google Santa is an open source tool for Mac OS. So an application signature. Is a digital signature that validates that an application is authentic from a specific publisher. And this, of course, assumes that the certificate supply chain has not been breached. As we know, that can not always be relied on. We've seen antivirus vendors lose their certs. That happens. CC Cleaner. Absolutely. And so you're only as secure as your supply chain with application signature. So in this case, know what your security boundary is. In this case, we're using application signature as a security boundary. You know, that's reality. Another option is application hash. That's a mathematical representation of an executable that's difficult to spoof. So if you did SHA-1, SHA-1 broke a couple of years ago, so maybe that's not a good security boundary anymore. That's also hard to keep up. So if you patch Windows, all of those hashes are going to change. That's not a sustainable way to build your rules on. But sometimes applications aren't signed, and you have to.
Is it safe to assume that when I hear app blocker and device guard, they're synonymous, or are they different?
They're different. Device guard is more sophisticated. It requires, for its more in-depth functionality, needs TPM chips. I'm less familiar with it, but yeah, they're different products. Application paths, so that's easy. That's the directory that the executable launches from.
Just a quick question for clarity. The app blocker, is it still called app blocker on Microsoft Windows, or is it bundled in one of their new bundles?
Still app blocker. Okay. And if you're familiar with it from Windows 7, it's still going to be about the same. I go into the differences, though, between 7 and 10. Okay. Any other? Yep.
Are application hashes similar to application signatures? And if so, how do they differ substantially?
So if you mean, so a signature is a digital certificate of the executable. And so if you were to, say, open up any Microsoft executable on Windows, right-click, go to Properties, you'll see a little certificate. That means that that application has been signed. So the hash or signature The hash is different from that. The hash is if you took, say, MD5, you could run a calculation on the executable and get a value and check it. Yeah.
So it's basically like basically you have like a file of code, and then
Yep.
you pass it through a hash program, and you get this.
Yep.
So if the program has been modified, you generate a different hash.
That's correct. Yes. And with certificates, that if the code has been modified, the certificate will no longer be valid for the code.
So if a program has been modified, both the signatures and the hashes will change.
It should. It just won't be signed anymore, or at least the signature will be invalid. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know that in depth. So you do your research. If I'm wrong, I apologize.
Okay,
But
No, I was going to say that with the application signature, there was something just recently released with changing the certificate, like setting a future date versus the post date on it. So then as you come through and look through your first iteration, it says, yeah, it's signed by Chris's signer, but the certificate's not valid.
that can absolutely happen. Yep.
Yeah, so that's a communication.
Yeah, the person who developed the application would have to update it, yeah. And in Windows 10 and 16 is doing certificate revocation. I don't think that Windows 7 had that functionality. I'm not 100% on that.
And then again, who would use 7 when you have a terminal and all that other stuff out there and they don't fully support it for security anymore?
You'd be amazed how long operating systems live in the wild. Having lived in industrial control, I've seen things like NT 3.1 in 2012. Anyways, okay, so just moving swiftly onwards. So when App Locker introduction, it requires Server 2008 and it requires Enterprise Windows 7. This is different. I think you mentioned software restriction policies. So if you don't have Enterprise, software restriction policies is a separate product that predates App Locker. You can use that on the professional editions. I think it still exists in Windows 10. Don't quote me on that. I haven't used it. So
What about for enterprise?
for Enterprise, App Locker, absolutely.
Not enterprise, at the educational.
Education, I am mostly certain includes App Locker. Reviewing the docs, I remember them saying that, but do your homework. Any other questions?
So just real quick, with support of file types, what about child processes? So let's say IE to PowerShell.
I'm not entirely certain.
You have to sort of containerize both of those if you have Locker piece?
No, so I'll go into how you build the rules. So it probably depends on how PowerShell got launched. So if it's in memory, App Locker might not give you that granularity, which is some of the bypasses.
Sure.
I'm not 100% certain. I can't talk to the bypasses specifically. Any other questions? So file types, packaged apps, which is that new Windows Store method of delivering applications. You have DLLs. Treat DLLs as executables. They're just EXEs in a different wrapper. EXEs, installers, scripts. So that's how you start building your rules.
Has the server 2008 just required for the group policy settings and stuff, or does it actually have to have component on it?
Nope. So what I mean by Server 2008 is that you can, if you have a non-domain joined 2008 machine, you can just use local group policy to enable it, which is an excellent segue into here. Let's implementation prerequisites. So you need to be able to run the application identity service. So that identifies the applications running on your system. So if you implement this, that's kind of a cool alert, because if that service stops, it means your whitelisting stopped. So in Windows 7 through 2012 R2, you just set it to automatic and you're good to go. If you're on 10 or 2016, it's a protected service, which is a different way that services launch. So on 2010 and 2016, you're supposed to use a domain. I have a reference slide that walks through all of that. And the reason I don't talk about it is it would take half the talk to walk you through it. If you have a non-domained machine, Microsoft's documentation does not allow you to run App Locker. But it's a registry hack away, so your mileage may vary with how well that's supported, but in my testing it worked great. Any questions? All right, so for all of you who have never been within group policy, go into a Windows machine, type gpedit.msc, and you'll get this friendly drop-down. This is where if You can set everything. Those of you who've used group policy for years know it and love it. So there it is. App Locker is under application control policies, and you get a set of rules. So to enable DLL rules, you have to go into the properties and check a checkbox. You get a warning that says, hey, this might affect your system performance. I have no idea how this is going to affect your system performance. I've never seen it cause issues. Maybe if you're running at minimum spec, it would. But something you can do today, if you're running a Windows environment, do this. Turn on logging. Increase your telemetry. You could do this to every machine in your environment today and start logging every application, every script that runs on that box. That's super powerful. If you have a crypto locker go through your environment, you'll log it. If someone's running executables or scripts and they've been doing it for years, that's how you backtrack.
So, auditing, it's just basically the computer keeping records of what?
Exactly. The computer will keep a record of everything that launched on the machine.
What's overhead like on that sort of space?
Yeah.
It's no different. Well, as far as I'm aware, it's no different than any other Windows event logging, right? So if you have your rotation set up appropriately in archiving, it shouldn't be an issue. If you let your security log run till it's full, then that's going to run till it's full too. But in terms of overhead, it's no more overhead than running AppLocker in itself. Like I said, I've never seen a system degradation. This is built into the operating system.
So does this information come back into Active Directory so you can kind of see a list of unique applications that have started?
You would have to do log aggregation, such as any other.
Like Splunk or
Right, you use the product of choice, SCCM, ELK. Any other questions? All right, so what do those logs look like? So once again, if you're brand new to Windows and you've never opened up Event Viewer, you search for Event Viewer, Application Services, Microsoft Windows App Locker, and then you'll have four different groups, and then you'll have some details. So this will tell you what's blocked, what's allowed, the groups and users affected by the rule type. And so you get event IDs, they're unique, so you can build your alerts on these events if you're using Splunk.
I don't know much about Splunk.
The big core concept is you have lots of endpoints, and they feed logs into a centralized location for security analysts to monitor and make decisions. And I don't know Splunk super well either, but I think that's a
Big log aggregator.
yeah.
Is that a freeware?
No, it's very pricey. A good one.
Yeah, is there a free version?
A good one to look at is Alien Vault for free.
Alien?
Alien Vault is a good free version. They have an open. Elk Stack. Elk Stack also is good for free logging. Yeah, Splunk's definitely not free if you put enough logs in it.
And actually, there was some good webinars either through Black Hills Information Security or some of it I think was on Security Weekly, where they actually went through implementing the Elk Stack in a Windows environment and what logs to capture
Cool.
and do all that. So
That does sound awesome. I should look for that.
Now, one other question. You
Yeah.
have to do that in a Windows Server environment. You can't do that like on a Windows professional environment. You can't aggregate logs from other local machines to another Windows.
You could do it in professional. So the logging capabilities, and usually there's an agent that will backhaul the logs back. So you could do that in professional.
Okay, so you could actually do that and to monitor a computer lab.
You could.
Classroom.
With the correct agent running on the endpoint. Yeah, you don't need Enterprise Edition for that. But there would be some setup. So let's talk defaults. So there's a bunch of default rules. Defaults are for dummies. These are terrible. I mean, if you're stuck and you need something, then I guess they work. But so the executable rules allows everyone to run anything in program files and Windows, and then lets admins run anything anywhere. Why is that bad? It's bad because printer drivers will allow users to write to the Windows directory. And so one of the known bypasses out there is a script that will crawl the Windows directory for all writable locations. And so it does that, it drops its malware, and then it will just run from your protected place. It's not super useful. The install rules are similar. They're paths and admins. They're more of the same. Script rules, more of the same. More path rules allow everyone to run scripts in protected directories. DLL rules, more of the same. And I've never worked with package apps, so I don't know how good or bad allowing all signed packaged apps are. But I would assume that since the Android Google Play Store is filled with malware, probably the Windows Store is. I don't know. But they're all signed, so you know it's coming from someone. All right, so then you could automatically generate rules. That's another option. So I'm going to walk you through in screenshots what that looks like. So you click that little button and you get that window and you select, say, the Windows directory. And we're going to create publisher rules for the digital signatures, and then we're going to reduce the number of rules created by grouping similar files. And then you get 309 rules. Do you guys want to manage 309 rules? I mean, it looks like this. I don't know. I certainly don't.
I want to manage them manually. That this is, you could script it maybe.
You possibly could, but in my experience, application whitelisting is kind of hands-on. Does take some manipulation. And most of these are hash rules, by the way. It's because those are the executables and DLLs that Microsoft did not sign in the operating system. And so I do have a demo. The sort of unfortunate thing is when I timed them, they don't fit into this talk. And so I have a link there that I walk through what this demo does. If I have time at the end of this, or like maybe during the lunch break, if you want to catch me in the hallway, I'll show you some things. So we'll...
Can you just hang on one second?
Yeah, of course. Okay. But what the demo is going to show you, so I create a rule set that allows anyone to run anything signed by Microsoft, and then I exclude Internet Explorer because I don't want that running anywhere. I will then try to launch Internet Explorer, and it will fail, as it should. And then I'll try to install Google Chrome, which will also fail. So then I'll create a rule set that allows Google-signed executables to run. I also want Google-signed installers to run, since I want to be able to update it. And then I'll show you some logs. So that's what that demo walks through. So, any questions? This is the end of the introduction to AppLocker.
The logging component, I know it takes enterprise to enforce rules, but can you still log on? Do you know if it can still log on lower levels?
I'm uncertain. I would assume not, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah,
I mean, you can push the group policy down and maybe it works. I'm just not sure. Any other questions? All right, so this is kind of a find. I don't know if any of you watch Rick and Morty, but existence is pain. So I tried to find some scripts that were signed on default builds of Windows 10 or Server 16, and Microsoft doesn't sign anything script-wise on their operating system by default. So if you're building whitelist script rules, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how you can whitelist the operating system in this case. You might just break everything. And here's some tips and tricks. So anti-lockout, one of the things that's super scary is I created a rule set and now I can't log into my machine. And that's because you've denied everything. And that is, if you remove availability, it's super secure, right? So to fix that, restart in safe mode, disable the service, or disable it in Active Directory, and you'll get yourself out of that bind. Fun fact, if you set Windows to deny all, the stuff that launches pre-login, like sticky keys, will still work. Yeah, think about that. Something that where AppLocker is running is not in that execution chain. That's fun. All right, so AppLocker has an import and export feature that lets you work with policies in XML. And so where that leads me is an opportunity for us, the community, is to start creating a repository of least privilege for common systems like Active Directory and Exchange. So you start with that deny all, you deny all DLL files, and then you build out what's required for your domain controller to run. That would be super cool. I'd love us to build that as a community. I'd love to build it myself, but I don't have the time, nor am I running Exchange anymore. And so yeah, there's an opportunity. Question?
What is a DLL file in Windows?
Dynamic link library, and I'm the wrong person to ask. I know it's effectively executable code used by applications, but anyone here have a good explanation, 30 seconds, for DLLs?
Basically designed to be shared between different applications, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. So if you have two applications that need a common library, it lets them run that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So another great use case of this is SCADA. Like I said, my background's heavy industry. So if you know exactly what your operating system is supposed to do, you could build an app locker policy to deny all, only do that thing, and then you can ship it off all over the world, and it's just going to have that policy. That'd be super cool. If I were building a SCADA device with the HMI, I would absolutely do that, because usually antivirus doesn't get deployed in SCADA environments, and I'd rather have whitelisting anyways. All right, so that brings me to Google Santa. I'm not going to read this giant blurb of text just to save you from hearing it. But effectively what Google Santa is, it's a white spacing product developed by Google, put out onto the internet, updated regularly. It's on GitHub, that's the link. It works. It's pretty neat. It's too bad that Apple doesn't put this into the operating system. And so having pivoted from a Windows environment to a Mac environment, I'm going to give this part of the presentation as sort of the Mac support forums. So here's Google Santa, and thank you, good night. If you've ever managed Mac OS, that's how their forums work. But actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to walk you through it just like the others. So you got rules. So we've already talked about signatures, hashes, and paths. So Santa lets you do all that. Implementation, Google Santa has a sync server. And using a sync server will enable an admin to configure rules and other settings. And so that doesn't appear in this talk. And the reason that doesn't appear in this talk is I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to make that work. I read their documents for about a day. I tried different things. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's talking over an encrypted channel. I don't know if it's authenticated. I know nothing about that sync server, but it's in there in the functionality. So your mileage may vary there. If you find out how to make it work, write a blog, please. The database, so what you can do as an alternative, there's a local database file. You can build a whitelist in a VM or in a sandbox, export that, and deploy it with your standard Mac tools, such as Monkey or Jamf or Chef or Ansible. I mean, it's Unix, so do what you want. So to install it, it's super easy. You download the precompiled signed binary. Mac OS is going to warn you with their attempt at application whitelisting. And so you just click through everything and you click next to success. Once it's on there, figure out if it's running tail tacf var db santa log, and it will start generating logs immediately. No need to restart the operating system. Any questions? So here's some basics. Once again, just like App Locker, audit mode and enforce mode. So when you first install Santa, it's in audit mode. So to configure it, here's a couple of basic things. You have a configuration, config plist. That's a super short text file, so you can edit that in VI or Atom. Set it to 1, audit mode. Set it to 2, enforce. The logs I already showed you, and then you could actually make a plain text dump of the rule database, include the commands there. Someone on the internet was very helpful and posted that. So Google Santa is all built around this Santa CTL command. It contains all the functionality for syncing with a sync server. It allows you to view the state and configuration. It can inspect individual files, manage the rule database. And so, sort of the easy stuff, find the certificate information of an application, Santa CTL, point it. Whitelist an application, Santa CTL rule, whitelist certificate, SHA-256. So I'm going to break this down for you. If you remove certificate, SHA-256 is the hash rule. So if you don't put certificate and you put SHA-256, you're only doing the file hash, not the actual publisher. Yeah.
Now you said Google Santa is for the Mac OS?
That's correct.
Is it also for Linux?
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, Mac OS is using the mock kernel, not the Linux kernel, so, and these are reliant on kernel hooks. So I don't actually know of an application whitelisting product like these two on Linux. So I guess part of the challenge is that Linux is signed binaries by default. So kind of have to trust the repos there. All right, so the anatomy of a log. So you tail tack F this log, and it's just going to vomit logs at you. I mean, it's awesome. You see everything, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be like the Matrix and be able to tell you what was supposed to run and what wasn't. It's just going to flow at me like noise. And so let me walk you through what the log looks like. So you've got date, time stamp. You have the action that was taken, the reason why it was allowed. So what and why. You have the SHA-256, so that's going to give you the hash of the application. You got the cert SHA-256, which is the certificate. You have the name of the certificate. And then you've got your user information. Man, don't you wish it was Windows? You know, you just click next to success and you get some logs and you're done. No, this is Unix. You got to go through the text. So you can grep on all that, though. So you can build your grep. You can tail tack F, pipe to grep, and search for, say, decision blocked or denied. And so here are some terms to help you while you're building those grep statements. So allow reason cert application is executed because the cert was trusted by Santa. Allow reason unknown. That's because it's in audit mode and it didn't know what to do with that executable, so it's just going to allow it. Deny reason unknown. Well, that's a good thing. That means you have deny all on, and it didn't recognize the binary, so it's turning it off. It's not allowing you to run it.
Question, sir. So
Yeah.
on the previous line you just were on, you had the last row and it said application was blocked from executing because of the specific SHA-256.
Right. So you can actually declare a block. You can blacklist. There's a blacklist flag that lets you.
So did Santa take this binary code, run it into SHA-256, and then say this hash doesn't have the one that I have in my database, so it's about...
I would assume that's how it works. I don't know the functional code details, but yes, that's how I would assume so.
Okay, thank you.
So like, this is a great way to block iTunes. Let's say you're running a Mac environment and you don't want iTunes running on your endpoints. Throw this on there and all of a sudden it won't work. Although then iTunes will update and then the SHA changes. So you have to keep managing it. Remember, security's hard and time consuming. So once again, I built the demo. Once again, it's long. We are at 36, and so I may have a time for one of the demos, so maybe I'll do a poll of the class. But the demo is going to set to enforce. It's going to show whitelisting behavior, re-enable audit mode, launch Chrome, review logs, you build a whitelist, you set Santa enforce, and then it works. So it's just like AppLocker, except more steps and more grepping. All right, so that's kind of the end of my talk. Like I said, I'll do the demos here at the end. I'll take a poll, see which ones you guys want to see, if you want to see any of them. But first, I want to thank Greg Linares. He's the one who brought me into InfoSec from a regular sysadmin. He introduced me to the community, and so he's awesome. Thomas Seckman and Bill Kothra, they taught me that Macs can be managed at the enterprise level. I didn't believe them, and then they taught me the ways. And then I want to thank the following folks: Liz, my wife, Andy Bailey, Bill Finlayson, Devin, Emma, Gerald, Jacob, Jared, Jessica Payne, Jim, Jonathan, Sean, and Wes. So friend follow, those are all great people on Twitter. The ones who don't have Twitter, you know, I don't know. I guess they're not in InfoSec. And yeah, so that's me. I'm VJRSec on Twitter. I host a blog. Sometimes I play with Unicode, and sometimes I play with whitelisting. But all my activities are blue team related. I don't break things very well. So.
Are you a Cyber Patriot mentor?
I'm not, but I'm interested. I saw the last talk. That I'm gonna look into that. So any questions? So this is the end, my friends. Does anyone want to see a demo? Anyone care? I am at 38, which means I could probably run you through one of them. Santa demo? Anyone else for Santa? Anyone? Santa? Cool. All right, let's me show you some Santas. Give me a second while I try to figure out my dual screen situation. Let's see. Oh, there's my mouse. There we go. All right. Google Santa demo. That's weird. Why is that like that? Okay. All right, so in this demo, like I said, I've installed Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Santa. And so this is a clean install of, yes?
Is this demo of installation or running?
Running. I'm not going to show you how to click next on an executable.
Got it, thank you.
So this is configuring Santa. Santa's already been installed off of GitHub, but it's in its default state. So I've changed nothing about Santa other than installing it. And so Chrome's going to work great. This is going to pop up and say, "Oh, hey, you've never opened this," and so that is Mac OS's version of whitelisting, I guess. And I'm going to say yes, and Chrome's already running, so awesome. All right, so let's go into a terminal. Close. All right, so here you are in a terminal. So let's go ahead and become a bigger person than we are today. So sudo tac I. All right, now we're the root user. Now we can cause some serious damage. So we're going to go ahead and do vi var db santa config. All right, so remember I said this is a super simple plist plain text file. So we're just going to change that number to 2. Now we're enforced. So by default, Google Santa whitelists everything signed by Apple. That's their anti-lockout feature. So hopefully you trust Apple. So now, oh, hey.
That information is stored locally on that client, or
It
go
is.
back to Google?
As far as I'm aware, it's not hooking back. I haven't done a network analysis. I mean, this tool is not particularly popular. It's not particularly well known. It's not an official Google product. I don't know. I'm not an application hacker, so someone should read the code. But still, I trust Google to have knowledge of applications on endpoints more than I trust my users to run the next crypto locker. So now we're going to start getting issues because Chrome was running. Now it's being denied, so let's go ahead and close Chrome. So now we're going to open up Firefox. I have not opened Firefox, and it's denied. You don't get to the Mac screen because it's not allowed to run. It's a kernel hook. And then, Launchpad works great. Safari works great. And it works great because Apple's trusted, right? Safari is the one true way.
So you just denied everything except for the Mac OS applications.
That's correct, yeah.
So, did you try it with a reverse shell to see if it would stop?
Hey, man, I fix things. I don't break them. I have no idea how to do that stuff. But you should. You should try it. I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll try it.
I don't know how to break things. I used MS-0867 once because the red teamer on my team thought I should probably know how that works. And it was cool, but I don't have the mindset for that. All right, so let's go ahead and do some log reviews. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. And I've got 8 minutes remaining, so I think I'm good here. So we're going to open up another terminal window. And, oop, that's the wrong operating system. Let's not do that. Maybe it launches. All right, so new window. Sorry. There we go. All right, so now we're just a standard user, so we're going to go ahead and tail tac f var log or var db Santa log. And then we're going to go ahead and pipe that to grep, and I already did the pain of trying to figure out the string. Tac e unknown period star Google. All right, so what this is going to do, if I did this right, is this is going to just run. And so when I open up Firefox, it's not going to show up in the log because I'm filtering it. Notice the log doesn't do anything. So now let's go ahead and run Google Chrome. And hey, lots of noise. And lots of windows that are... So remember how I talked about the cert SHA-256? So there it is in the log. There's the SHA-256, just anatomy of a log. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to go back to the other terminal window, and we're going to do Santa CTL rule tac. Sorry, I'm not able to spell and speak at the same time. It's like chewing bubble gum and walking. All right, so we're going to go ahead and paste that in. We've added a rule. So let's go ahead and go back to our log here. Oops. Clear. All right, and let's run that same again, right? So where'd that mouse go? There we go. Run Google Chrome again. Well, it launched, but it broke again. So why is that? That's because Google used two different certificates to run. In this case, there's a helper sub-application that uses a different certificate. But Google will launch, but I don't think that's going to work for my users. I don't want to teach them to just click through warnings. So that's a different cert from the last time. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. And we're going to go back here. I'm going to do white list, tac, not 245, 256. Cool. All right, so now that's added. And now let's go ahead and close Chrome. Launch it again. Success. No errors. Works like a champ. What about Firefox? Get out of here. Doesn't work. So that's Google Santa in a nutshell. App Locker works the same way, just a lot more click nexts, a lot more pretty GUI dialog boxes for your junior admins. One cool thing you could do with this, one thing I'd love to see done, is piping these logs back into an ELK stack and then aggregating them. So say you're running Mac OS on, say, 100 users, and you've never done whitelisting. I want to pipe that all into ELK, aggregate what applications are being run, and then start pushing out whitelist audits and decrease the noise and then enforce on a single day. Because you should be able to aggregate these logs across your environment in ELK, figure out what the common applications are in your environment and whitelist them. But I haven't gotten there. Security's hard and time consuming. So, any questions?
Can you whitelist by folder?
What's that?
Can you whitelist by folder instead of by...
You sure can. Yeah. Google Santa allows for path and hash. So you could, in theory, whitelist a... I just don't trust paths.
Yeah.
People like you get into the path and drop binaries and then run them.
Yeah. Well, if you let's say whitelisted the exact file in the path, so let's say Google Chrome, then that, and it's got only writable access by root, it means that the hacker would have to have root anyway in order to write it.
Yeah, that's correct.
That way, if there's a patch that changes the SHA-256 of the Google file, it would still accept it.
Right. Well, we're whitelisting the certificate signing, and so hopefully, and I don't know this for a fact, I know on Windows this is true. Hopefully, the SHA of the certificate doesn't change particularly often. Right, because certificates are usually valid for 3 years. So usually vendors don't change that certificate particularly often. And that's why I'm pushing using certificate whitelisting, is because it's a more reliable way than just the path or the hash of the file itself. The signing certificates rarely change. It's like the SSL certs on websites, right? How those get rotated every 3 years. So usually they're a reliable indicator. Usually. Any other questions? Awesome. So thank you, everyone. Hope this taught you something.